Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and shortly on TikTok when I get the TikTok camera working, which I'll do no doubt in the next minute. Folks, this is the show where we are British, we love the United Kingdom, and we want to stay together. And if that's you, please keep watching, and if that's not you, then please keep watching anyway, because you are sure to learn something. We are teleprompter free and we welcome all comments. Please do send in your thoughts tonight. The big news, of course, is our successful rally, which we held on Saturday the 20th. We're going to be telling you all about that, bringing you the ups and the downs and the pictures and some videos as well from that. But it was very successful, and if you were there, folks, please do tell us what you thought of it. From our perspective, it was the biggest and the best rally that we've ever had with a Force for Good, and also almost like a sort of pinnacle really of our efforts so far. Now let's report upon our fantastic free speech rules rally, which was held on Saturday. Now, of course, many of you will know that that was in response to the rally that was organised by an organisation called Make Believe in Scotland. Well, that's what we call them, but actually they call themselves Believe in Scotland. And it was also in collaboration with the youth wing of the SNP, which is actually known as Pensioners for Independence. Anyway, they were having a march from Kelvin Grove Park to George Square in the centre of Glasgow, and then they had an interminable rally, which was only made bearable by the great fun that a Force for Good was having in the square at the same time, basically just shouting in a good-natured way at all the speakers and tending to drown them out and just generally cause irritation, I suppose, for the people who are trying to break up our country. And irritation is the least that they can expect. Goodness me, they're trying to destroy the United Kingdom. Do you think we're just going to sit around and put up with that? Of course not. We've got something to say as well, and we certainly did say it on Saturday. Now, somebody there on TikTok suggested that our numbers, he says he counted 12. Well, sir, it doesn't surprise me that you can only count up to 12, but if you could count up to 250, then you would have been able to actually get a more correct number of us. Because that is indeed how many that we had. And basically what they were doing was they were marching, as I say, and we counted their march, and we counted 1,743 of them, and we made that public, and lo and behold, Make Believe in Scotland released their official figure, and do you know what it was? 2,000. In other words, they basically tracked us. They would say, what's a Force for Good saying? Because a Force for Good is generally right. And they would see it was 1,743. That would track with the numbers that they were expecting. Maybe they even counted it themselves, I don't know. But they certainly didn't do what the all under one banner people do, which is multiply it by 5 or 10 times. I'm quite sure if that had been an all under one banner march, then they would have said something like 8,000 probably. But interestingly, and it is very interesting, the Make Believe in Scotland people actually just tracked our figure and gave essentially the same figure. They just rounded it up to 2,000, which if once you added in the 100 or so who are already in the square, then that would be a fair assessment. So well done, at least, to Make Believe in Scotland for not lying through their teeth in the way that the All Under One Banner people do. Now, the All Under One Banner people had boycotted the event. However, they are having a separate march, would you believe, 2 Saturdays from now, at least on the 5th of March. And we'll be counting them, as we always do, and releasing the true figure later that afternoon. But what was interesting as well about that 1,743 is that there was a group called, I don't know what it was called, but something to do with Palestine, who tacked themselves on. And they represented a major part of that march. And if you go to our youtube.com site and you look at the march, you'll see that major group of at least 300 people who were only there for the Palestine-Israel issue and no other issue. And when they arrived in the square, most of them just departed. They just left. A small group hung about for a little while, and then some hardcore, like 10 or so, stayed to the bitter end. But most of the pro-Palestine detachment on the march just left straight away. So if you wanted, you could deduct that 300 from the 1,743 actually to get maybe a more precise figure of the specific Scottish nationalist denomination. We Say It podcast says they couldn't even get 2,000 people, so it's laughable really. The SNP are finished. Well, that certainly was the SNP official marching wing, addressed by their great leader. Now, we expected the march to arrive in the square about 1:30. We were a little bit out. It didn't arrive in the square until 2 o'clock, almost 2 o'clock precisely. And it didn't start up until, the rally didn't start up until about 2:30. And it didn't finish until 4:15. And so that was quite a long time for a lot of people to stand about in the square. And for some reason, they put Humza on last, which meant that most of their people had departed. 2/3 of the people who arrived on the march had left by the time Humza Yousaf got around to speak, which was 4:05. And he spoke for about 12 minutes. I say 2/3, could have been 4/5 of people, their people, the SNP people had left. Many of ours had stayed, I might say. More of our people stayed to the very end than their people who stayed to the very end. And Christopher says, you certainly spoiled their little party. We did indeed. Debbie says, it's 4th of May, not the 5th of May, for the All Under One Banner people. Are we doing a presence? No. It's not worth getting out of bed for. I mean, they might have 400, maybe 500. We'll see, but it'll be over in like 4 or 5 minutes. So their one last year had about 700, I think, on it. There'll be fewer this year. So, I mean, that's going to pass, as I say, in 5 minutes. And so all the organisation that's required to get people to do a big counter demo, it's just not worth our time and energy. As we say, we don't get out of bed for anything less than 2,000 people, or 1,743. Let's have a look at some pictures here. Now, there's the first picture. Now, let me just explain this picture, and I'll explain it for people on TikTok who can't actually see it. But obviously, we coordinate this with the police. We don't just turn up mob-handed, as it were, and the police wonder what's going on. We tell the police exactly what we're going to do, approximately how many are going to be there, how long we're going to be there for, and so on and so forth. And so we asked we said we were going to be standing between the big Walter Scott monument, which is the one in the middle, and the Sir John Moore statue, which you see there in the background. And the council put up some railings there just to kind of designate where we are meant to be. And that was just at the very start, just about 1:15, when people are arriving. And you'll see there, we've got our SNP out now flag. We're just tying that to the railings. Where people have got saltires. There's a St George, Welsh flag there. There's an Ulster flag at the back there, and there's an English flag there. We like to have these flags of all the parts of the United Kingdom at these sorts of rallies. It really adds a lot of colour. So that's just at the start, when we're just beginning to get in there. Okay. And that's around about the same time, but from a different angle. We've got our Get Humza Out #Scottish Ejection banner, which always goes down a storm. That's our PA system there. You see that black cabinet on the left. And so people are beginning to fill into that little space. And so obviously that's not going to hold everybody. So people then started just standing around in front of it and at the side of it. Okay. Closer shot there. That's one of our marshals with the red cap talking to a supporter there about what's going on. Nothing's happening at the other end of the square. The marchers haven't even arrived yet, so people are just coming in. As you can see, it was a beautiful day. Lovely blue sky. It really was good. So that set off the flags so nicely. Okay. There we go. It's getting a little bit busier, and always good to have a flag, one or two flags on very tall poles that tower over events. That always helps to set things off. Beautiful Glasgow City Chambers there in the background. Okay. So this is me just beginning to tell folk what's going to be happening. The marchers hadn't arrived in the square yet, but we were just about to expect them, I think. Okay. There's a good shot. That's a media person there, and I'm just walking towards his camera because he wanted to interview me. And the sun is just shining quite nicely through the SNP Out Now flag. Great stuff. Okay. There you go. Now that's when it starts to get underway. There's a really good shot of Nick Marshall speaking. His speech was extremely well received. That's it's a lot busier there. There's a lot of people behind him. You'll see in a video which will play in a moment. There's a lot of people behind him and to the side of him as he's speaking. Okay. And there's another shot taken from another angle of Nick. Nick was our guest, of course, on last week from the We Say It podcast, which is on Twitter and also on Rumble / We Say It podcast, all one word. Okay. And this is our second speaker, Dr. Alan McManus, who gave a really good speech about the importance of freedom of speech for academic inquiry and indeed for political debate. And we've got his full speech, which we will put out on YouTube within the next week or so. It's a very thoughtful speech, and we were very grateful to Dr. Alan McManus there for coming along to talk about these very pertinent things. Okay. There's another high quality photograph taken of him. Quite a good one. And okay, the next one. That's a good shot. That's a good shot of Dr. Alan McManus at the rally. We might use that one on the YouTube video. Now, this chap came down from Aberdeen. I want to thank Grant is his name, and I want to thank him for coming down. Now, if you hold your mobile phone over that QR code, it will actually take you to the AFFG sign-up page. um, among other things. But yeah, thank you to that gentleman for coming all the way down from Aberdeen. And we had a lady who also came all the way down from Aberdeen. And we had a gentleman who came all the way up from London. So folks, these people are committed to the cause of the Union and to freedom of speech. So thank you to them for travelling. And of course, thank you to everybody who travelled from near and far. Okay. There's a photograph. The previous photograph was from Billy Knox Photography, and that's another one from Billy Knox Photography. If you go on to Facebook and search for Billy Knox Photography, you'll find all the pics that he took on the day, most of them being of the SNP Scottish Cabbage Party, but he took one or two good ones of us as well, and that's three of our stalwarts. And the gentleman there on the right, James, is always very well dressed. Okay, and there's quite a good shot of me. That's from Billy Knox Photography again, and that's me watching, I think, the march coming in. And once the march came into the square, as I say, they had half an hour before they started their speeches, and so we used that time to give our speeches. There's another shot of me as well. And I did give one or two songs as well, including Bye Bye Humza, Humza Goodbye, Bye Bye Humza, Scotland Says Bye. Okay, and there's a shot, as you can see, people in front, not just behind where the railings are, but people in front now. And this is when it's starting to get busier. And there's Kat with her umbrella right at the front there. Always a good thing. An umbrella is as good as a flag for these kind of shots. And in fact, are just as good actually, because it's the umbrella is under the flags, as it were, so it's just adds this splash of colour right directly into an already colourful picture. That's a keeper, that one, absolutely. I think we have to use that one in a magazine. And that's if you turn round and if you look towards where they are, where their stage is, which is at the far end of the square in the centre there in the middle distance. That's us looking from our platform to the stage, and all the flags you see there are ours, the saltires and the England flag there. Okay, and this is when it's at its busiest. That's a startling picture, and that did very well on Twitter. And what I like there is all these flags there. Well, we didn't bring any Palestinian flags. These ones are in the background there are belonging to the yes side. But basically every other flag that you see there is ours. And we go right up to the yellow line. You can just see the police separating us from the rest, separating us from the SNP and Scottish Cabbage Party. Okay. As another slight angle looking over as well, from round about the same vantage point. England flag. We had 5 England flags flying, which I think is so important to do, because we have to make sure that people from England or in England know that as long as you're British, if you support the United Kingdom, then every part of the United Kingdom is yours. Every part of Britain belongs to you. We can move to England. England can move up here. It's all part of Britain. And there's a close-up shot there, which we used on St George's Day yesterday, of one of our supporters with the England flag. Okay. Another shot over most of our supporters. You can see the Scottish nationalists just in the background there. But see all the flags Great stuff. Okay. Another picture in the heat of the action. It's really quite busy at this stage. As I say, we had between 200 and 250 there, which we're really pleased about. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is just place 2 or 3 short videos. I'll introduce each one prior to playing it, but the reason to show these videos is it just gives you a sense of the dynamic and the numbers on the day. Now, this first one is of Nick Mitchell, who is speaking, and it shows it helps to give you an idea of the size of the crowd. And this is just a 1-minute video. Let's play this.
Ultimately, to you, Mr. Humza, you said that you're listening, and you better listen good. I will not be silent. This is my war. This is your war. So stand up and be counted. Because if you allow this SNP government to continue on, you're going to end up completely controlled with no way back. This is a turning point. And you know what? You may hate me for this, but I'm going to explain why I'm going to say this. I'm also here to stand up for that.
What he was about to say there is he was here to stand up for them as well, because the matter of freedom of speech is so important, even though at this moment it seems to be mainly us pro-UK people who understand the relevance of that. But we have to reach out to the other side as well on those sorts of matters. And there's a lot of whistle blowing there and a lot of noise, and that was because a lot of our people were blowing whistles at the compare of their event as well, which was just beginning to get started. And but everybody you saw in that video is us, so you can see just how many people we were able to get there. It was really quite remarkable. And something that really struck me as well was it went so well and so peacefully. You know, there was no trouble at all. There was obviously a lot of passion on both sides, but both sides were well able to control themselves, were well able to deal with each other in a reasonable manner. And so for me, that gave me a certain amount of hope that there wasn't any, like, what you'd call conflict there. And it really went very smoothly. And the police presence was not at all large. I mean, when we stood against Sturgeon back when she visited the square in November 2019, the police presence was massive. And in fact, they shut off the entire square. Roads leading in and roads leading out were all blocked with vans and horses, and it was a serious lockdown of George Square. And back then in 2019, we did not have the numbers that were at that march this time round. But this time around, the police presence was really quite few, because most of them were at the Hampden game, because there was a semi-final on at Hampden. So there was only, well, I don't want to put a number on it, but there was not that many police officers there. And yet it was a very smooth event. And there was no police officers at our back, for example. But we never had any trouble that big as a result of that. Whether that was just because there was a lot of us, might have had something to do with it. And also because basically, I think many of us are able to have that sort of rally now without any any kind of problem. So I think that's a really good sign. I think it was a good sign that it went so smoothly and so peacefully, and like clockwork, really. It went extremely well, even though both sides were very passionate and politically very much opposed to each other. So maybe Scotland's a little bit different in that way than if it had been in another part of the United Kingdom, or indeed certainly the world. Okay, enough about that. Let's have a look at our second video. Now, before we play this, we're shouting. This is when Humza comes on, okay, and everybody is trying to drown him out, and you can be assured that we were heard. So let's play this.
Humza out! 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 Humza out!
So if you didn't quite catch that, we were shouting Humza out. And we had to shout Humza out for 12 long minutes without pause. And I do want to thank everybody who managed that feat most enthusiastically, I should say. And for those who weren't shouting, they were blowing whistles or otherwise giving Humza their considered opinion on that matter. So that was worth waiting until the very bitter end to shout Humza out. And I want to thank everybody who came along and indeed did wait to the bitter end, and those who, of course, had to leave early as well. You made your mark. In fact, one of the people who were there today, they sent us a message. It read, "What can a man say? That was class in George Square. Victory for us." Even the Scott Nats left early, and when Humza came on, he must have been embarrassed about the few people left. I had political conversations with decent people. Your songs were class. Our whistles worked. Some funny moments with protesters too. Indeed, sir. Well, I absolutely second that emotion, and I'm glad that you liked it. Now, they had about 9 speakers that were on, and most of the speakers, it should be said, were not household names. They were household names in their own households. But that's really as much as you could say. Modest people with much to be modest about. Well-known household names in their own households. And so when I was Googling them to try to figure out things to say to them, to shout at them, I basically couldn't even find very much on the internet machine about them. But we did shout at Pat Kane, who is a very verbose national journalist for the national newspaper. And we've got a little video here of me shouting at Pat Kane. Now, you'll see there's nobody behind me. That's because at this stage, everybody has now moved to the front. So I'm just enclosed within the railings using the megaphone to help drown out an awful lot of whistles in the background as well. So let's see if we can hear anything on this one.
Who's the man, Pat? Could you put a clock on this for me, please? I want to tell people right to switch their brains back on. And equal civilization If you want to hear some big words that you've never heard before, just go down to the stage and listen to Pat Kane, because he's been having a very serious talk about his own life these last few hours. And he's going to be using at least some 6 or 7 syllable words in this speech, so I hope that he's handing out a dictionary at the same time.
Independence is about dealing, coping with the future. We know in this mentioned
Keeping the United Kingdom is about home. Keeping the United Kingdom together is about understanding that we have more in common than we do apart. Keeping the United Kingdom together is the only way for these people want to do it. And they will very
Well, that gives you some idea of the sort of atmosphere, as it were, that was going on, and very, very enjoyable, fun time, no doubt about it, if you're into that sort of thing. And as I say, I'm so glad that it happened, and so thankful to everybody who came along. Let's see what you guys have got to say. We say it says, I appreciate the opportunity. Thorpe Sewing Lessons says, lovely to see our flags and people enjoying themselves. Isn't it just? Absolutely. Yep, we had an Ulster flag there as well, a big one, which was well appreciated. British Legends says, amazing weather, my kids enjoyed themselves. I'm glad to hear that. They were walking about with a big saltire and a big Union Jack as well between them. Catherine liked the pics. British Legend says, it's about time that the Unionist rallies are getting bigger and stronger. No retreat, no surrender. And of course there were no arrests at the rally or counter-rally, as we're reminded here. Lego Rocker says the police presence was definitely minimum. There was probably only around 20 police there that were visible. Yes, that's what it seemed like. Lego Rocker. Rita says it was great to see more Unionists supporting us on Saturday. Long may it continue. I've absolutely no doubt that it will continue, Rita. It can only get bigger. And it can only get better. And we are committed to doing this. And this is our work. And it can only grow. It can only grow thanks to all our supporters, such as yourself, Rita. And to Bill also, who had our 7-metre flagpole, which is a cracker. He held that tall and proud. Stuart says, well done. Union flag's ready, says Derek. British Legend says he'll be at the next one. Well, there definitely will be a next one, but I don't know when that will be. But there'll be no doubt plenty of opportunities this year. Derek loves the photos and the videos. Well, how is this going for Humza Yousaf anyway? This whole hate thing. Well, 2 in 7,000 hate complaints picked up by Police Scotland, says a report that appeared a few days ago now on the 17th of April. And it says the force released new statistics yesterday showing that the number of online hate crime reports it received had fallen from 7,152 in the first week of the law coming into force to 1,832 between April 8 and April 14. So that's reports. That's a total of 8,984 reports in the first 14 days of April. Just reports. Of course, the police have to wade through that. They've got to assess what may be a crime. And a crime is when the words are considered threatening or abusive or insulting, and they're paired with the intention to stir up hate, or in some cases, the likelihood that they might stir up hate. And so if those two things come together, then there could be a crime, and that will get then reported further to the prosecutor. And it says here, while Police Scotland had said it identified 240 offences in the first week, that would be to say 240 of the 7,154. They identified 240 as offences, but only 9 of these were being investigated under the newly created offence, the rest being seen as aggravators for existing offences. And it has now emerged that all but 2 of the 9 investigations have already been dismissed. And so there's only 2 of the complaints from the first week out of the 7,152 which are being taken forward as potential hate crimes. And what are these? What are these ones? The 2 cases still being investigated relate to football fans allegedly singing the Billy Boys in Glasgow before an Old Firm football match on April the 7th. And anti-Semitic graffiti seen in Buchanan Street, Glasgow, ahead of a pro-Israel gathering on April the 4th. So, make of that what you will. Make of that what you will. However, one perhaps good thing that we can take from this report is that the police are not appearing to go overboard in nailing you to the wall, nailing everybody to the wall. If that is in fact true, time will tell. Time will tell how it all works, but it's probably all just been a waste of time and money. Senior legal figures have accused the SNP of botching the introduction of the law with misleading public messaging, which critics say suggest all instances of hate had been criminalised. A £400,000 Scottish Government advertising drive was launched promoting the laws with the slogan, "Hate Hurts." Again, that's from the Daily Telegraph. 2 in 7,000 hate complaints picked up by Police Scotland. What are the other parties making of this? Well, as we know, the only outspoken people in Holyrood have been the Conservative Party. The Labour Party under Anas Sarwar, their only complaint has been really, if you boil it down, that Humza's hate law didn't go far enough because it didn't include hate alleged on the basis of sex, as in meaning basically hatred towards women. It didn't have a misogyny clause in it. So in other words, that's the extent to which Labour will criticise the hate speech law. But as we know, there's going to be a misogyny law being brought in. That's one of the next things that Humza's lined up. So it will be a separate act to stop hate against women. And then that takes you to the next level as, okay, how are they defining women? And Humza's defining it in the modern sense, which is anybody who identifies as a woman, which is creating lots of turmoil on social media with people like J.K. Rowling opposing that definition, understandably so. And I'm just flagging this up at the moment because this appeared in the National 2 days ago. Report suggests Jack could block Scottish misogyny legislation. Jack referring here to Alistair Jack, the Scottish Secretary of State. Now, as we know, he's done that before. Back at the start of 2023, Holyrood passed the Gender Recognition and Reform Act, bill, but it didn't become an act because Alistair Jack stepped in before it went to royal assent, and he said that you cannot pass that. I'm not going to allow that to go to the king for his signature. And so it never became law. And people have said, well, why couldn't that have been done with the Hate Speech Act? Well, indeed, it could have been done, but unfortunately it was passed by Holyrood back in March 21, and it went to royal assent 2 or 3 weeks thereafter. And once that happens, it's not so easy for the Secretary of State to stop it. Indeed, under current legislation, it wouldn't be possible for the Secretary of State to stop it. However, if the Secretary of State really wanted to, because it is the British government could pass a law which could repeal any law that has already got royal assent. If they wanted, they could do that, but there's no mechanisms under present law for that to happen. Anyway, with this potential misogyny legislation, it says here, a source told the newspaper, quote, Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack has already humiliated the Scottish Government once by kiboshing the GRR bill, and he is more than willing to do so again. The Conservatives can see SNP gender policy is completely out of step with public opinion, and there are also legitimate concerns over whether Scottish legislation on the issue could have a detrimental impact on existing UK law. If it is the case that a Scottish misogyny law was going to water down the definition of what a woman actually is, to the extent that existing protections for women could be weakened rather than strengthened, then the UK government will act to block it. Close quote. Very interesting that that's on their radar, and that possibility is on their radar. And if they did block it, it's almost certainly going to be around what's said here as legitimate concerns over whether Scottish legislation on the issue could have a detrimental impact on existing UK law, because that's the reasoning which they used to block the GRR bill before it went to royal assent. So we might be watching that happen again if indeed this misogyny law is passed before the general election and Alistair Jack is still in place. If it is passed after the general election, and if we have a Labour government in power, then it's possible that they'll just let that fly and they'll just let that happen. So I guess it all depends on whether this Misogyny Act is going to be passed before or after the general election. I suppose if Humza Yousaf thought that there was a chance that it would get struck down then he's probably not going to bring it before Parliament until after the general election, and he can be assured that his sympathetic Labour government will just let it happen. But you heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. Report suggests Jack could block Scottish misogyny legislation. Somebody's talking about a mandate for a second referendum. I'm afraid the Scottish Nationalists don't have a mandate for a second referendum. Now, we have explained that in our new book, One Big Country, and thanks to Kat, we've got one or two good photographs of our One Big Country book. There you go. Kat brought it along to the rally, and there's me holding the One Big Country book. Now, that's the physical copy of it. We've also got it as an ebook, and there's the ebook. Isn't that amazing? That's the ebook, which you can read anytime you want. You can take it wherever you want, as long as you've got your iPad there or other reading device. Then it is literally at your fingertips or in your back pocket or wherever you keep your Kindle. Fantastic. Okay. So I spoke there about the mandates. We actually address that. We have a whole section called The Mandate Matter, and we have 4 chapters addressing why the SNP cannot claim a mandate for a second referendum, and how indeed we can claim a mandate for holding the United Kingdom together. And that's what our politicians have to do. Rather than just allowing the SNP and the Scottish Cabbages to set the agenda by claiming they're the ones with the mandate, you turn it around and say, no, we're the ones with the mandate. You literally are voting at a British general election for people to represent you in the British Parliament, and everybody who goes there has got a mandate to sit in that Parliament. And if that Parliament says that it wants to keep the United Kingdom together, and it doesn't want to have a second referendum to break up the country, then you voted for that because you voted to send people to that Parliament, whether you're a Scottish nationalist or not. So it's all explained here. It's all explained here. And we also here, we detail the actual percentage of the entire Scottish electorate that's ever voted for the Scottish National Party at 8 elections, which is to say the last 4 Westminster ones and the last 4 Holyrood ones. And the highest SNP vote as a percentage of the entire electorate that they've ever had was 35.5% of the entire electorate, and that was on the 7th of May 2015 at a Westminster election. And the highest vote that they've ever had at a Holyrood election was on the 6th of May 2021, where they got, wait for this, 27.9% of the entire Scottish electorate. So they haven't even had 30% of the entire Scottish electorate voting for them. The best they've ever had is 27.9%. So don't tell me, sir, that's a mandate. Please don't tell me that's a mandate. And if you want to see these figures, what you need to do is go to Amazon and search for One Big Country. So much valuable information in there. And Volume 2 will be out in time, no doubt, for Christmas. Folks, if you've liked what we do, please do consider giving us a donation. You know, the rallies that we had there, they don't come for free. The flags don't come for free. The flagpoles don't come for free. The banners don't come for free. The transport doesn't come for free. The PA system doesn't come for free. the filming and the video editing and the picture editing, and all the work that we do doesn't come for free. We love it. Our team are so committed to it. We do a great job across all the social media platforms every day. We've been going since the 21st of March 2012, and we're still here. And we're only still here because of folks like you who say, do you know what, I think that's worth a fiver. I'm going to chip in at aforceforgood.uk/donate to. Or people who say, do you know what, £100, bang, let's get that in there. aforceforgood.uk/donate to, because that's literally what keeps us going day to day, week to week, month to month. And then when you look back on it, you realise it was year to year to year to year to year to year, and on and on. So we do live very frugally. We do deliver. We deliver way above anything you can possibly imagine. I mean, I'm not going to joke when I say you could have an organisation, one of these big organisations in London that's been funded by multimillionaires to write like pointless pamphlets about stuff, and they'd never be able to put people on the streets in the way that A Force for Good can on the tiny budget that we work with. And people can check our tiny budget by simply going to Company's House and searching for A Force for Good Productions Limited. So we really do deliver the goods. We put the meat and potatoes and 2 veg on the Unionist table every day. We're bringing home the bacon every day. And it's only because of you guys who are donating to us, whether one-offs at aforceforgood.uk/donate to, or whether joining our Union Supporters programme, which is our monthly donor programme, for which you get our magazines, our wee book, and these badges here, this badge as well. All of these you can get for free at our monthly donor programme. Folks, it's the top of the hour. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for all your comments. We've had a good number of views tonight. Lots of people on Twitter. Do share. If you're watching on Twitter, please give us a repost. Please give us a like. Let's get this message out there. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. And if you're watching on Facebook, please give us a thumbs up and please do give us a share, because this is how this program gets out. This program's now on the internet forever, and all you need to do is just share it around. Folks, Catherine says an excellent program. Thank you. Blue Bear, it was good to see you. Thanks very much for introducing yourself to me. And let's stay in touch. Great stuff. Folks, it just remains for me to say thanks for watching. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the King. See you next time.